These are some carburetors I have from previous builds. This is actually the one that was on my race bike. It's a PZ19. It's pretty small, but it seemed to work pretty well with that mild Predator build. Did seem to be lacking on the top end though. So I got this PZ26 that on a similar build, but it did seem to have top end. So if you can see the difference in the size of the slides. So it says a PZ26, but I think it's actually like a 22 millimeter. So I'm not a huge difference, but I think it should be enough to make a difference. These intake manifolds I built, so I just made the flanges and just some steel bends. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this carburetor apart and clean it up and get ready to go on the bike. Got new fuel lines all ran. Flywheel cover on. Breather tank is installed and connected. Get the throttle cable ran. This is the cable that came with the thumb throttle assembly that I put on my bike. Carburetor end takes this smaller fitting. I kind of stretched the cable out, and it seems like the length of the cable itself is going to be pretty decent. I may need to alter the inner cable itself, the length of that. But the outer housing seems to be like it might be pretty close. But we'll start by installing this end into the carburetor. I have the cable all routed, and I put it into the thumb throttle and tried adjusting it out, and the inside cable is a little too long. So just marking or figuring out where you need to cut it shorter. I find it a lot easier to put the end in the carburetor and then route it and then mark it at the throttle end. Because with the round slide carburetor, it's kind of hard to figure out where you need to mark it and stuff. So basically I just need to like cut the end off plus maybe a 1/16 of an inch and then put a new fitting on it. So I'll just mark that. So this is the new end that will go on the cable. There's a hole through it that the cable goes through. One side will be nice flush hole. The other side will be counterbored a little. Pay attention to that when you put it on the cable. So here's my marked cable. I use some dedicated cutters for cutting the cable nice and cleanly. And clean the cable. Use some of this liquid flux for metal soldering, not for electrical soldering. Stuff is pretty much like acid, so you want to be very careful. I'm going into the flush side of the fitting, so the counter board will be outward. So then the end of the cable, you're going to pull the strands apart. So what's going to happen is when you pull this out, there's going to stay flared, and the solder's going to pack in there, and it'll form like a wedge. So even if you lose solder connection to the fitting, you'll still have that wedge of solder attached to the cable. So that'll keep it from coming apart. So I'm going to clean the end of this in the flux. You just dip it in quick, otherwise it wicks up the whole thing and you'll have solder all the way up your cable and it won't be stiff, it won't flex properly. Dab it on the paper towel to pull it out so it doesn't wick up. The reason I don't put the whole fitting in there is I had just drilled that counter bore, so I have nice clean metal there. And if you get the flux on the outside of this, when you go to dip it into the solder, it's all going to be covered in solder. So then you have to spend some time with a file to clean all that up so it'll work properly. But at this point I'm ready to solder it. I'm just waiting for the solder to warm up. So the solder's good and hot. See how it's liquid. I just dipped it in long enough until I started to see the solder come up the cable, wick up the cable. Part that's stuck on the end is fine. I'll just clean that off on the grinder. It'll take just a second. So just let it cool off. Ground that extra solder off. Got the cable installed and routed.